I am a huge fan of imperfect experimentation when it comes to finding the right way to sell my way. But how do we know what is worth pursuing and when it's time to drop something that's not working? That is what today's episode is all about. Welcome to the Soulful Sales Show, where we talk about believing in the value of your offers, getting them in front of your right people, and selling more of what you do in your unique way. Hi, and welcome back to the Soulful Sales Show. Today we have another quick-fire Soulful Selling Stories interview with Emma Cossey, all about an important practice to help us figure out where to best focus our selling efforts. That is tracking our numbers. Emma Cossey is a coach and mentor for freelancers, helping them get started, overcome speed bumps, grow their business, and build it to work around their brain, their values, and their life. As you will hear in our chat, the way Emma tracks and interprets her numbers isn't about overwhelming herself with the details or getting obsessed about the numbers without really giving things a chance, but is more about spurring herself into taking more action in the right way. Enjoy. So, Emma, can you just tell us in your own words a little bit about your business and your journey in your online business?
Yeah, no problem. So I've been freelance for, I think, over 15 years now. I actually think our businesses, we kind of came up around the same time. And I think you and I first connected on what used to be Twitter back in the lovely days. Um, I think that's where we initially connected there. But I started as someone who fell into freelancing. I had no idea what freelancing was. And I was very fortunate to have someone that was able to walk me through the first steps, which was my first client. Um, and I realized it was such a privilege to have that opportunity that I wanted to create as much information and make freelancing as accessible as possible for as many people as possible. So yeah, so I've been freelance for 15 years. I've been a coach for 8 or 9 years, I think coming up to 9 years now. And yeah, I really love talking about freelancing, from how to find clients to imposter syndrome, how to deal with the roller coaster of income with it as well, but also just things like how to make it ADHD friendly, because I am ADHD, I have my ADHD myself. Um, and yeah, all of the little hacks and tools and apps and tips that make freelance life a little bit easier.
I love all your hacks and tips. I love them. Okay, so actually, speaking of your hacks and tips, let's move into your soulful selling story. And what you wanted to talk about for this mini episode was a really important practice that you have and that we should all have, which is tracking your numbers to see what is actually working. So I would love to hear, what is your tracking process? What are your non-negotiables for tracking in a way that also isn't totally overwhelming?
So first of all, I will say I am terrible at doing things um, like the whole traditionally consistently, which is why
Yeah.
I've always loved your persistence over consistency kind of motto. That's always been something that I've really related to. But every single Monday, I will sit down with one of my team members, and we will sit down and go through all of the most important numbers in my business. So it will be things like how many clients I've currently got working with me at the moment. Discovery calls, that's a really important one to track, because if I see a pattern of, I know generally what my conversion rate is from discovery call to clients. So I need to keep on top of how many discovery calls I've got each month. If I see that dropping, I know I need to take action that week to boost that, or hopefully book some more in. If I see I'm getting lots of discovery calls but not booking the clients, I need to work on something that side, whether it's the messaging, whether it's um, what I'm doing in the discovery calls, those sorts of things. So that's one of the most important things I track. But I also track things that lead into the discovery calls, so social media numbers. And it doesn't matter. It's it's not black and white. Numbers go up, discovery calls go up.
Yeah.
So I don't take it too seriously, because suddenly you can get a boost on, say, TikTok, which I'll touch on in a minute, but then realize half of those followers are spam. So you got to take it with a pinch of salt, but it's still really useful to see what's working, what's not. Email list, I know that's something that's very close to your heart. That's something I track and make sure that that's still going up, and also keep an eye on. the unsubscribe to subscribe rating. What other things? And then I do track some of the numbers for some of my goals and things like that. Like I'm writing a book at the moment, so I'm doing that side of things. Um, so it can change, but essentially I sit down for 5, 10 minutes with my team and write down where I'm at with all of those numbers. Now, if I just had to do it on my own, I don't think I would do it
Yeah.
because I would forget to do it, or I wouldn't. It would just be so easy to slide down my priority list. But knowing I've got it booked in as a call, and even if you don't have like a VA or anyone like that, you could do a body doubling session with someone else you know, and you could both spend, say, 10 minutes on a Monday writing down those numbers. But those numbers will tell you what's working, what's not. I like to try lots of different things. Like you, I kind of like experimenting and seeing what works and what doesn't. And no, tracking those numbers is so important to working out what I don't need to be plowing lots of energy or time into, and what I do need to be spending more time on.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that. So, firstly, I really picked up on that when you said you do it with your team because it is so easy to let this slip down the priority list. So easy. How do you find the balance? Like when you're experimenting with something new, how do you give it the space it needs and not get totally overwhelmed with like checking the numbers and tracking the numbers and trying to figure it all out really, really quickly and giving it a bit of time?
I think actually this is where the ADHD comes in quite useful because I don't get really dragged in to the analytics of the
Hmm.
numbers. So I tend to do, and I think doing it with someone else as well means I can verbally process it. So I can go, oh, we've seen a jump in this, and can talk it out why we might have had seen that jump. Um, but also, it's useful to have someone else there who goes, "Oh, we've seen a drop. Like we've just cleaned up my email list a bit, so we've just seen a big drop in not a big drop, but a drop in my subscribers." And it's good to have someone else to remind me, like, "Oh, yeah, that's why. So don't worry about it." So I think having that sounding board of someone there to both verbally process through it and also to reassure you that you're not completely messing up or there's a reason that you might have forgotten, that can all help not getting too tied up in it. I think it also helps certain things you don't need to necessarily track weekly. You can track them monthly. Like my income, I keep an eye on it, but I don't tend to track it too much monthly because I think I feel like I would get too drawn into that, and then that you can compare with other people and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, I think generally having that sounding board is really useful.
Thank you for sharing that. So helpful. I can totally see how helpful it would be to literally have someone to speak it out with. I'm actually going to I'm adding these new calls in the Soulful Sales Society membership where we're going to review and plan for review the month that's just gone, plan for the month ahead. And part of that is just to force us to actually sit down and do it because it's always, like you said, one of those things that slips down the to-do list. But I can totally see how doing it alongside other people and having a place to actually speak it out loud, really, really helpful. The other thing I'm wondering is, how long have you been doing this, and what I guess what differences have you seen it has made in how you choose to show up and market and sell in your business?
I think I've been doing it consistently for
Mhm.
about 6 months now. There were certain numbers we sort of haphazardly did, but 6 months every week, I would say, is how long we've been doing this. I've seen an increase in my income during that time. And I think a large part of that is because if I see, say, for example, my discovery call numbers are not what my goal is for that month in order to do it, it makes me take action. It makes me think, right, this week then I need to prioritize this. Or I need to add a call to action, or I need to share my coaching page. It reminds me to take that action. And I don't know if I would do it if I didn't have those reminders. So I think it's a bit like with your goals. I think it's useful to write down your goals every day, even if it's like bullet points, because it keeps them front of mind and it reminds you and it keeps you on track. Otherwise, it's very easy to set it and forget it.
It's so true. Like I have this manifestation experiment I've done with clients before. And, it's the reason it's an experiment is just to see what happens when you actually stay committed to a goal. And the thing that we notice so quickly is how just the daily journaling process that we use is what keeps your focus on it. It's so easy to let go of it.
Yeah.
when you're not intentionally focusing on it. So really, really helpful for getting you to see those trends, taking action. You also mentioned that it's helpful for you to see what is worth letting go of. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so one of the numbers I've been tracking is TikTok because I see a lot of the potential in TikTok. I love being on it. Um, but I have personally found it's really hard to grow grow your numbers with quality people following you there. So like every day I get followers on TikTok, but a lot of them are spam accounts or fake accounts or random army men in America who want to contact you about being a sugar daddy. There's a lot of spam on TikTok, and I do actually have it set up so that when I post to Instagram Reels, it automatically creates a draft in TikTok for me. So then I can just publish it, check it and publish it. So it doesn't take me a huge amount of work, but I think I've come to the conclusion now that it's not worth the time that I was putting in the extra time for it when Instagram and LinkedIn works so much better for me. So yeah, I've shifted my focus back to them. It's kind of an afterthought, but it's definitely not a focus that I'm growing there.
Yeah, really, really helpful. And I think it's so easy to be totally overwhelmed. I think we have to show up in all the places. Um, it can work both ways, right? Because sometimes we can think that things aren't working and we're not actually seeing the facts what they are, but it can work the other way as well. Like, oh, I'm just going to push and keep showing up here. And oh, look, I'm getting all these followers. But then when we dig into it, it's not what we actually need for our business.
No, it's so, yeah, like you say, it's so easy to feel that pressure. Like, this is what I should be doing. In the same way, like, I think people feel a lot of pressure to jump on LinkedIn all the time. If it's not working for you and you don't enjoy it, then I don't necessarily love LinkedIn, but I see the results. So it's worth that time there. But yeah, I think it helps you assess and let go of the things that you don't need to do.
Have you had a moment where you've thought something wasn't working and then this, like getting in the habit of this regular tracking has helped show you where things are working that you weren't seeing?
I think actually probably email. I think my email list, seeing like I had a period where it wasn't changing a lot, or I realized that I wasn't tracking the unsubscribes. And then I realized that the unsubscribe rate and the subscribe rate were almost like matching each other
Mhm.
each week. So I wasn't growing. And that really helped because it made me realize that I need to go in and check my welcome sequence. I improved my welcome sequence, and now I'm seeing a real improvement in there, and I'm getting more people signed up. And it's also reminding me to put out my freebies and things like that more often. Um, so I think it has helped me improve that. And I think also I didn't realize Instagram was quite happily growing, and I hadn't been paying any attention to that number. So it makes me then put more effort into Instagram because I've already seen the growth, the natural growth from it.
I love that. That example about the welcome sequence, I love that so much because it would be so easy for you to tell yourself a number of stories about those numbers
Yeah.
and then actually digging into them and saying, okay, you know what? This isn't like I don't need to go into this massive story about me and how good my emails are, blah, blah, blah. I can actually be curious about what's going on, find some data, tweak something, and then see how it changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, before we wrap up, I have another quickfire question for you, and that is, what is your biggest win, lesson, or mindset shift since being part of the Soulful Sales Society membership?
Oh, um, there are a lot. Genuinely, there are a lot. And I think I've already touched on the whole persistence over consistency is always something I'm reminding myself of, and it's really helpful. But actually, selling every day has been the most powerful, and doing the selling every day challenge has made it become the norm and not such a scary thing. I've now got like I use a tool called Sunsama to plan out my day, and it automatically has a task now with sort of some of the suggestions of what I can do each day and like daily selling task. And that's now just become a natural part of my business that every day I do something and it doesn't even feel like selling anymore. It just feels like sharing and helping. Um, so I think that's probably one of the biggest practical ones.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And I love that you've set it up on a recurring task. That's a really good idea. And finally, where can people go to find out more about your wonderful work? and follow you on social media?
So I've got a website, obviously, freelancelifestyle.co.uk. I have a Facebook group, the Freelance Lifestylers, which has over 6,000, I think, now members. Really lovely, friendly group, very supportive. And I've got my own podcast, the Freelancers Tea Break, which people can come along and listen to short and sweet podcast episodes all about freelancing that they can enjoy with a cuppa.
And I will also put all those links in the show notes, plus the link to your freebie. Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Soulful Sales. If you have a moment to rate and review, know that it really does make a difference. And if you'd like to carry on the conversation, then you can connect with me on Instagram at Ruth Poundwhite, sign up to my newsletter at ruthpoundwhite.com/newsletter, or my personal favourite, join me inside the low ticket membership at ruthpoundwhite.com/membership. And keep doing what you're doing, because your work really does matter.